Stay with us and we'll bring you more news. Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. President Donald Trump meets with congressional Republicans on Capitol Hill today. The narrow GOP majority is now divided over the scope of the budget bill's spending cuts. We'll break down those details in a panel. Weapons in space. President Trump is expected to announce the Golden Dome missile defense program. Requirements for access to yearly COVID shots are changing, with priority going to older adults and those with existing health problems. A New Orleans Sheriff's Office maintenance worker is taken into custody. The 33-year-old is a suspect in the escape of 10 jail inmates. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is facing questions about the Trump administration's handling of the Ukraine war, why some Democrats say Russia is playing with President Trump.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
In the next hour, President Donald Trump is expected to announce his concept for the Golden Dome missile defense program. It would include space-based interceptors to defend against missile attacks. According to plans not yet made public, the president has chosen the mid-cost version. While this was not the most expensive option put forward, the initial cost would still range between $30 billion and $100 billion. The Golden Dome aims to detect and stop missiles at all four major stages of a potential attack: before launch, in early flight, mid-course, and in the final moments before a strike. The Golden Dome system will take years to create and aims to counter against the advanced missile capabilities of Russia and China. And President Donald Trump was on Capitol Hill this morning. He wanted to rally support among divided House Republicans for his multi-trillion-dollar budget bill, which he has dubbed the Big Beautiful Bill. Some lawmakers are holding reservations about budget cuts and tax changes. NTD correspondent Melina Weiskup has the update from Washington, D.C.
Speaking to reporters outside of that Republican House conference earlier this morning, President Trump elaborated on something that he said previously, that is that he feels there are some grandstanders in the Republican Party holding up his ambitious budget bill. Here's his message to those so-called grandstanders, while he acknowledged that there's at least one of them that he knows he won't be able to change their mind.
You have a couple that will grandstand, but I think even the grandstanders should look. The alternative is a 68% tax increase. And you can blame the Democrats for that and one or two grandstanders.
I don't think Thomas Massie understands government. I think he's a grandstander, frankly. He'll probably vote. We don't even talk to him much. I think he should be voted out of office.
House Speaker Mike Johnson held a press conference immediately after that closed-door meeting. Here's what he said about the direction of the budget bill, as well as how Trump's words may have impacted it.
We're in a very good mood this morning. We had an epic time on the Hill. I don't think there's ever been a time when I've been more proud to be a Republican, to be an American. We're on the verge of making history here, and everybody feels it. In that room today with President Trump, it was filled with standing ovations and high energy and high excitement because everybody senses what's happening here. It was a great esprit de corps. When you're doing this much in a bill this large and complicated and comprehensive, there's a lot of opinions in the room. We respect that in the Republican Party. We're people of deep principle and settled philosophy, and you're going to get differences of opinion when you work through these things. That's part of it. We welcome it. Nothing in Congress is ever easy, especially when you have small margins, but we are going to land this plane and deliver this. I'm going to just end it here and tell you that failure is simply not an option. We have to get this done.
House Republican leadership has repeatedly committed to passing this big budget bill by next week on Memorial Day. Meanwhile, over in the Senate, some senators are already saying that they want to break this bill up into separate pieces. And then you have others who are raising concerns, saying because of the Medicaid portion in its current form, they're not willing to vote for it at all. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
And President Trump talked to reporters after the meeting. He called it a meeting of unity.
Your message to lawmakers?
We just had it was really a meeting of unity. We had tremendous unity. There's a lot of love in the room. I think we're going to have a big victory.
Republicans don't support this bill?
I think
Anybody that didn't support it as a Republican, I would consider to be a fool. It's a great bill. It's a great bill for America, more importantly. This is the greatest bill that will ever, I think it's the most important bill this country just about has ever done in terms of size and scope. That's why we call it the great, big, beautiful deal. I mean, it really is. The bill is, I think it's going to be one of the most important. It's the biggest tax reduction in history, biggest regulation reduction in history. Incredible for Medicaid, for Medicare. The only thing, we're going to leave it exactly as it was, other than for obviously waste, fraud, and abuse. We're strengthening it. We're going to make these things even stronger. The Democrats are going to destroy Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. And we're going to keep them, but even make them stronger.
House Republicans are pushing landmark legislation aimed at securing the border, reducing tax burdens, and boosting economic growth. Today, Michigan Congresswoman Lisa McClain was joined by fellow GOP lawmakers to outline the party's vision.
We will pass this transformational legislation for the families who just lost loved ones to the border crisis. Families like Lincoln Riley and Rachel Morin, who were both killed by violent, illegal immigrants, like Zach Cullen, who lost his life to fentanyl, and Agent Raul Gonzalez, who lost his life pursuing an illegal immigrant near the border. This historic opportunity to secure our border and make our communities safer. This bill provides technology to improve border enforcement. This bill provides resources to support border patrol agents that they so desperately need. This bill provides funding to deport more violent illegal immigrants and materials to finish the wall. We have an opportunity right now before us to make generational investments in the safety of our communities. Let's close the floodgates and remove those that never should have been here in the first place.
I mean, you know why the Democrats dislike this bill so much? Because it's so darn Republican. Embraces three fundamental Republican principles: cut taxes, secures the border, requires work. We're the party that believes you should let mom and dads keep more of their money to chase down their goals and dreams. We're the party that believes you should actually have a secure border. This bill does it, as Chairman Green just pointed out. And we're the party that believes able-bodied adults, if they're going to get your money, should have to work. It's good for taxpayers. It's good for the economy. Most importantly, it's good for that individual. This bill embraces three fundamental principles of our party. That's why I think it's really important that Republicans lean in and go tell the American people how important this legislation is, how it keeps faith with what we told the voters we were going to do last November, why they elected us, and it's right on point. So I'm confident we're going to get there this week, get the votes that we need to get this thing passed.
President Trump promised and delivered, and now the House will too. The One Big Beautiful Bill stops the largest tax increase in history and focuses benefits on workers, families, farmers, and small businesses. It unleashes Made in America manufacturing and delivers on President Trump's promise to all American workers. This is an economic growth agenda combined with historic spending reforms that protects those in need and puts America on a path to a better future. $140 billion in your tax dollars shouldn't go to illegal immigrants who have broken the law. Instead, Republicans are putting that money towards no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. Fortunately, 77 million Americans have already weighed in. We're going to deliver on the president's promises, and we're going to help working and middle-class Americans.
All right, so let's stay on what the president is calling this One Big Beautiful Bill. We're bringing on a panel now. We've got Mike Leon, NTD News contributor and host of the podcast Can We Please Talk, as well as Tim Desher, Executive Director of Unleash Prosperity. Mike, Tim, great to have you both on today. Before we get into it too deeply, let's listen to President Trump from earlier today, right before he went into those meetings on Capitol Hill. Take a look.
This is bigger than any Ronald Reagan tax cut. It's even bigger than the tax cut that I gave, because as you know, that's being extended and increased.
So this is the biggest tax cut in the history of our country, or you'll get a 68% tax increase.
All right, Mike, let's start it off with you. What are the stakes here for President Trump right now?
Hey, Fiona, good to see you. Yeah, I mean, the stakes are, as always, right? We've got to pass legislation. I just want to echo something Chip Roy said on the House floor. I want to say it was about a year ago or so, where he said, what can I take back to my constituents and tell them that we've done in Congress, right? And here he is again, by the way, leading one of those committees, echoing something similar. And he's one of the described hardliners with respect to this no vote. But the stake is really, passing the president's agenda. And obviously there are some things that are politically sensitive, like the president knows, which is Medicaid, which will affect some folks from the House that are in, let's say, purplish districts, like Mike Lawler up in New York, who only won by 6 percentage points in the fall. So there are certain things and sensitivities around this, but at the end of the day, this is going to chart the course for what these next 4 years will look like if this bill, this one big, beautiful, I can't believe I'm saying it, Fiona, without laughing, but if this one big, beautiful bill passes, this is something that the president can champion, and these people can, like Chip Roy said, take out to their districts in 2026 for re-election.
All right, Tim, what's the dynamic you're seeing in the Republican Party right now? The president, he's saying the party is unified.
Well, look, we've got a lot of opinions on a lot of different sides. We've got folks in the high tax blue states who are saying, hey, we want that SALT cap raised. We want to be able to, deduct some of those high income taxes that we're paying in our blue states. And then you've got red states saying, why should we subsidize that? And by the way, I would fall on that side. I don't think that we need to fall victim to, capitulating to such bad state policy. So that's a huge faction going on right now. You've also got folks on the right in the Freedom Caucus saying, look, we're not doing enough to reduce our deficit. We're not doing enough to reduce the debt. We have this chance. We have majorities in the House and the Senate, and we got the White House. And we need to make good on those promises that we told our constituents that we're going to get America's fiscal house in order. So there's a lot of different factions going on, but the good news is this: we're talking about cutting taxes. We're talking about economic growth. We're talking about expensing for capital investments, which we know are the ones that drive economic growth. And so, look, this bill is going to have a vote in the House. I believe they're going to pass it, and then it's going to go to the Senate, and it's going to look a whole lot different once those negotiations start happening. And then you got to go back to the House and reconcile the two. So this is a long process here, but the good thing is the framework is there, and it's markedly different from the Biden administration.
All right, so let's dig deeper here on this SALT cap. Mike, there was no final deal on this SALT cap last night. We heard that from House Speaker. Then we heard the president today telling New York Republican Representative Mike Lawler to back off on demanding a higher cap. Mike, Tim there already kind of broke down where both sides of this argument stand right now, but go deeper here. What do both sides want? And as you mentioned earlier, what do constituents want?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked it, because I had Congressman Pat Ryan on to talk about this, and during the fall and after the president got reelected and he won his vote by about 15 percentage points in his district, I said, well, what's something that you would want to talk to the current administration about coming in that you feel your constituents? And remember, he's in the next district over from Mike Lawler, and he said the SALT cap, right? Like, that is something that's going to be talked about, and if there's wiggle room that I can work with the president, I would vote for something like that, even if it meant bucking the Democratic Party line on this. So the reason why this is such a big issue, and we were just talking about it before, about the political football of this, right? Like there's constituents that, with respect to what Nick just said about living in blue states that are paying high tax, that understand that lifting that SALT cap from 10,000 to 30,000 would help them immensely, right? So that's going to garner you potentially more votes come fall, right? 2026 is just around the corner, folks. Like, it's not that far away. And I think for with respect to the politics part of this, and when I mean politics, I mean like the grandstanding and the people that say they're going to be no's and we're going to chase this down the rabbit hole, and then eventually they don't become no's, except for Thomas Massie, right? Like, there's not that many votes to lose with respect to all this, which is why the president went to Capitol Hill today to say, hey, let's start to all fall in line here. Let's pass this. And then you can champion this back out later on when you go down the road, because you're going to start your campaign stuff starting up in the fall and going into, obviously, January of 2026, because we're just around the corner. So with respect to all of this, like, the big issues with respect to Medicaid, obviously not making cuts to Medicaid. We know how many Republicans in a bunch of different not only swing states, but like these swing districts, these purplish districts will be affected by that. That's why you saw him so adamant about we're not cutting Medicaid, don't touch Medicaid. We're just going to talk about certain things like work requirements for Medicaid. They're getting everything in line right now, Fiona, with respect to messaging about this, because they know it's politically sensitive and it'll set the course, like I mentioned before, for the next 4 years of the administration. He can take this now on the road with him. The president can, to champion some of these things. And obviously the members of Congress with respect to their districts can go back and tell their constituents, this is what we passed and this is how it's going to affect you. That'll alleviate some concerns in these town halls that we've been seeing pop up all over the place.
And we're going to get into Medicaid and Representative Massey in just a second. But Tim, now that President Trump has had these meetings, how big of a point of contention do you expect the SALT cap to remain?
Look, Mike made some good points, but he's dead wrong on one specific thing with SALT, and that is that that people who are just making it, just trying to make it by and be helped, are going to actually be impacted by that SALT cap. Let me just break this down for you real quick. About 90%, over 90% of Americans take the standard deduction now. That's because Trump leveled the playing field with the TCJA in 2017. That means that only the very, very wealthy are going to be impacted by that SALT cap. Okay, so let's take this out of the realm. This is not going to help poor people or middle income people. This will help the actual wealthy. So literally, we are talking about people in red states subsidizing the very wealthy in blue states. This is not a far-reaching thing, and we got to work on messaging for that, because that's just not the case, number one. And number two, we know that President Trump, as well as Speaker Johnson, have offered higher caps to Lawler and the SALT Republicans, and they have flat out rejected any compromise that has been put out. And in fact, they've come back with such a high number that it's just impossible. It would cost $1 trillion for us to put that SALT cap back on, over $1 trillion. So we got to be very real about what actually is, not just the messaging and what we want to say, but that's the reality of what it would be. And so it would basically sink this tax cut, because we would have to figure out how to pay for that SALT cap to come back. So I think that it will be worked out. I think that the offer that the speaker has made, I don't think that faded away. I just think that the SALT Republicans are going to have to get real about the actual lay of the land here and what they can actually get out of this.
Mike, Tim makes some interesting points. I'll give you a quick moment to respond before we move on.
No, I don't have any response, because I don't think I actually hit home. I agree with a lot of what he's saying. I know that over the 400,000 will obviously impact people that make more and are in a higher tax bracket. So I don't think I was actually commenting. I was just talking more about what the lift would be and what some of these Republicans want. So I kind of agree with what Tim's saying. So there's no response back. This isn't a clapback hour here, Fiona. Like, he's right about this.
It's about messaging. It's about messaging. That's what I'm saying. How we talk about it. It's not about giving people a break, because look, these are the taxes. No tax on tips. No tax on Social Security. No tax. These are all huge things that will actually help poor people and people in the middle class. So that's what I didn't mean to attack you, Mike.
No. And I got that. And Tim, and by the way, and Fiona, this is exactly what the president went to Capitol Hill to do, because I think there's symbolic in all of this is how you unify your message around this. So let me just take Medicaid, even though we haven't been talking about it, and we probably will get to it. With respect to Medicaid, right? Because of how many millions of people, red and blue states, not a red and blue state thing. There's millions of people across different state lines that depend on Medicaid for services, right? It's not just medical services. And I think a lot of the times right now, the messaging is about they're going to get rid of it. And the president's like, we're not touching it. We're just going to make it so that there are qualifiers put in place so you can't abuse the system. That's why he went to Capitol Hill. That's what Tim is talking about with respect to messaging. And I think they're starting to get a little bit more unified on that front for sure.
All right, well, this is a great conversation. Let's talk about Representative Massey. All right, here's President Trump on Representative Massey not supporting the bill. Take a look.
I don't think Thomas Massey understands government. I think he's a grandstander, frankly. He'll probably vote. We don't even talk to him much. I think he should be voted out of office. And I just don't think he understands government. If you ask him a couple of...
All right, Mike, Representative Massey, he's told CNN already that despite President Trump calling him out, he's still going to vote against the bill. He also said that President Trump was actually nicer to him behind closed doors than in front of the media. How do you read this type of back and forth here?
So let me be fully transparent here. At the Free and Equal Elections Foundation, Thomas Massie did one of our debates over the summer with all the third-party candidates. He's always kind of labeled himself as this independent Republican. This is his own words. You can go watch the debate when he gave a soliloquy about the way he doesn't feel as part of the party a lot of the times, right? And it's kind of netted out with respect to they've marked him down as one of the votes that they will probably lose with respect to this margin, that this razor thin margin that they have. So if you just base it off of that, just of those high qualifiers, knowing what Thomas Massie has said publicly, and then some of his actions, it's not really performative. He feels like he can take this stance because he knows he's the outlier with respect to all the votes, and the president can get everybody else kind of aligned within this, right? And again, he's also in a semi-safe seat, and whether or not they'll have a primary challenger for him later on, we'll find out. So he can do this, as the president just mentioned there, or somebody mentioned grandstanding. He can do this grandstanding aspect of it with respect to the budget. Now, I do agree with him. $20 trillion, the OMB saying that we could add some of that over the next, I think it's 10 years or so, with respect to what Ross said from the Office of Management and Budget. So that is a concern, and he's taken it upon himself to say, look, this is the only way I have within my toolkit to be able to say, I'm not voting for this. Let's draw attention to this, because one of the things we ran on, and the GOP ran on, if you recall in the debates, and Nikki Haley would always say it, we need an accountant in the White House, right? So the calculator shows that this will increase spending, according to Thomas Massie and according to the OMB. So he is using it with respect to what he has in his toolkit to say, I'm not going to vote for this, and this is why I'm not going to vote for it. So I just want to give people the high level. Like, I've happened to know Thomas Massie over the last year or so. This is what he has done. He has taken it upon himself to be this outlier with respect to the Republican Party, excuse me.
Now, Tim, to Mike's point there, the president is saying Representative Massie should be voted out of Congress. But would you say it's valuable in these cases to have a dissenting voice within the party to bring in the other perspectives?
Yeah, look, dissension is fine. But here's the bottom line. Do you want to grow the economy, or do you not want to grow the economy? That's really what we have to talk about here. And by the way, I think that Tom Massie does make some good points. Actually, we are out of control in spending. Look, our debt is insanely high, 36 trillion or whatever the number is currently. He wears it right there on his lapel. You can see it every time he talks, and he does that for a reason, because he was elected to do that. He was elected to protect the Second Amendment. He was elected to get the debt and deficit under control. Those are his things, and he's confident that his constituents will support him in that. But however, this bill, and Trump talked about it today, nobody cares more about this than I do. Now, probably Tom Massie would say that I care more about it, because that's the issue that I'm going to die on this hill on. But I do think, though, that with the tariffs and with the tax cuts, hopefully getting that 15% corporate tax rate, the expensing that we talked about, all of those things drive so much economic growth that, just as President Trump said, if it wasn't for COVID, we would have started paying down that debt and deficit. And so we have to just look at this holistically. We know that economic growth is going to bend down that curve of debt. We know that economic growth, with 1% more, you go from 2% to 3% growth, you start seeing that yield just come down like that with our debt. So we need to pay attention to that with this. We have an opportunity, and I would just encourage Representative Massie, while this is a hill you want to die on, just remember, don't lose the opportunity to start talking about economic growth.
All right, before we go here, let's finally take a look at Medicaid, right? The big topic here. We're seeing debate on both sides. Conservatives saying not enough cuts. The other side, Democrats saying already too many cuts. Okay, President Trump today, he's saying that all they're cutting is, quote, waste, fraud, and abuse. He said he's actually bringing down the cost of prescription drugs, and he's not touching, Medicare or Social Security. Mike, do you think the president has done enough here to satisfy either sides of this debate?
Well, I mean, that's a loaded question, Fiona, but I would say no. And the reason I say it's loaded is because obviously we don't know what the bill is going to look like. Nick just mentioned before, all of the steps it still has to take in order to get there. All I can look at is the impact of how many millions of people will be impacted. And I think what they're trying to do is say, look, what we will be cutting, or at least what we will be amending, is how you qualify for these programs. And that when you put the parameters in place with respect to a work requirement, right? 80 hours a month, I think it's 20 hours a week or something like that, as per the latest bill that was floated. When you do that, right, you're going to have, and this is for, again, not taking out people that have actual issues. You know, these are people that are able-bodied, as they've outlined in this bill, able-bodied folks that do qualify for this program with respect to the parameters that they've put in place. Right, you will have now less people coming off of that program, and then you can start to make the cuts off of that. That's the way that they've started to position this. I think the president probably hasn't done enough, but again, I know that there are core things that he doesn't want to touch in this bill because, like I mentioned before, it's a political football nightmare for them that they don't want to fumble with respect to how Democrats could then reverse position this and say, you're going to lose coverage, XYZ, flood the inboxes and start calling your local representative because you're going to lose XYZ. So I think, again, it's all chicken and egg, and that's kind of why the president is there in Capitol Hill today. But we need to see like what this all kind of shakes out to over the next couple of weeks. I know Mike Johnson has imposed this Memorial Day deadline, which is asinine to do, in my opinion, but we're going to see where this all shakes out, and we still have some time. We need to see what the bill looks like holistically and what the actual cuts are for Medicaid before I can actually give you an honest answer about whether or not the president has actually, met both sides' requirements here.
Yeah, fair enough, Mike. Tim, final word to you here. How do you see this whole Medicaid situation playing out in this so-called big, beautiful bill? And could we be seeing that Memorial Day deadline met?
Anybody who shouldn't be on Medicaid should not be on Medicaid. That's the bottom line. We need people to take all of these jobs that we're going to move into this country through the big, beautiful bill. And so we got to get people off of the sideline. We can't be. And remember, what we just saw when you were showing the B-roll there, you showed a bunch of seniors in senior living facilities. Medicaid is not for seniors. That's Medicare. We're not going to touch Medicare. We're not touching seniors at all on this. These are for people who, Medicaid is for people who, impoverished people who lost their jobs, who don't have the ability to afford health care. The least of these, that's who we need to protect. That's who we need to show. And so if we are to remove the people who shouldn't be receiving Medicaid, these are able-bodied workers, these are illegal immigrants, these are people who should not have ever been on this program in the first place. If we remove those people from the program, you're going to be able to provide better benefits, better opportunities for people who actually need Medicaid. And that's what we have to hit home here. That's what we have to message. And I think I applaud the president for making that the case. Waste, fraud, abuse. Those are the people who are going to be impacted by this. And you know what? I applaud that. And I think the American people do as well.
All right. Well, I'm sure it's been a busy day on Capitol Hill. Mike Leon, Tim Dasher, great having you guys on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When we come back, requirements for access to yearly COVID shots are changing, with priority going to older adults and those with existing health problems. And a New Orleans Sheriff's Office maintenance worker is taken into custody. The 33-year-old is a suspect in the escape of 10 jail inmates. We'll be right back.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
Food. It fuels our bodies, nourishes our spirits, and brings us together. Because we all need nutritious food to thrive.
Food gives me energy and it also helps me focus.
But not everyone knows where their next meal is coming from. And 1 in 7 people in America face hunger. It's tougher than ever for too many of us. But the simple truth is, ending hunger is possible, and it starts with you. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, to help families in your community facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. Your monthly gift delivers food where it's needed most, puts fresh food on the table, and helps kids have healthy meals all year round, even when school is out.
You can see the difference with the kids when they're full. Food is everything.
Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Give $19 a month. Your first gift can double in impact. And we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag as a reminder of how you're helping to end hunger for good.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Food donations help me tremendously, and I'm very grateful for the food bank. I have hope.
The simple truth is, ending hunger in America is possible. You can help make it happen. The need is urgent. Call or go online now to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
Welcome back. The Justice Department announced yesterday the formation of a new unit to crack down on federally funded universities with DEI policies. It'll use a civil anti-fraud law. The Civil Rights Fraud Initiative will target colleges and universities accused of pushing anti-Semitic, anti-American, and, quote, divisive DEI policies. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says universities that allow anti-Semitism or let men into women's bathrooms and sports could violate the False Claims Act. The False Claims Act is a federal civil law that allows the government to recover funds lost due to fraud. Private citizens can also use it to sue the government's behalf and can become eligible to receive a portion of the recovered proceeds. The Trump administration has announced further cuts in federal funding to Harvard. The Department of Health and Human Services is cutting $60 million in federal grants to Harvard University. It's saying the school failed to address anti-Semitic harassment and racial discrimination on campus. This is the latest in a wave of federal actions targeting the Ivy League institution. The Trump administration has already frozen or canceled nearly $3 billion in federal support, accusing Harvard of allowing discrimination tied to pro-Palestinian protests and continuing to factor ethnicity into admissions. Harvard denies the charges and has sued to block the funding cuts, calling them a threat to academic freedom. The Energy Department is ending the Biden-era pause on liquefied natural gas export permits. Officials say expanding LNG exports in the public interest, boosting the economy, strengthening national security, and helping allies overseas. The Energy Department says the impact on gas prices and global emissions would be minimal, while projecting a $410 billion boost to GDP by 2050. The move fulfills a Trump campaign promise to unleash what he calls American energy dominance. Environmental groups like the Sierra Club criticize the decision, saying it favors big energy firms and could worsen the climate crisis. The Trump administration has agreed to lift the stop work order on a major wind project off of New York's coast. New York Governor Kathy Hochul announced the president's decision yesterday. The project has been on hold since last month. Empire Wind was approved by the Biden administration last year. However, Interior Secretary Doug Burgum halted it for review on April 16th. Burgum cited insufficient analysis at the time of approval. Now, Governor Hochul announced that Trump and Burgum reauthorized the project after her office spoke with developer Equinor and White House officials. The Norway-based company thanked Trump for allowing the project to resume and expressed appreciation to Hochul for her efforts. Equinor said about 30% of the project has already been completed. Empire Wind is expected to start generating electricity in 2027. The Trump administration unveiled a major new policy shift on COVID vaccines. New requirements mean healthy young adults and children will no longer be routinely approved for access to yearly COVID shots. COVID shots would still be offered to adults 65 and older, as well as children and younger adults with at least one health problem that puts them at higher risk. The FDA framework urges companies to conduct large, lengthy studies before tweaked vaccines can be approved for healthier people. Top FDA officials have criticized the U.S.'s one-size-fits-all approach to COVID vaccines. They said the updated requirements brings the U.S. more in line with European countries. And is COVID-19 spreading inside China once again? Local reports say many people have been infected with the virus recently, showing symptoms of fever, coughs, or sore throats. Videos showing packed hospitals are circulating on Chinese social media platforms. They say that COVID-19 has been spreading locally in low numbers since the pandemic, but has recently been on the rise again. Now, beyond local reports, even the country's top state health agency confirmed the rise of positive cases of COVID-19. The Chinese regime has a history of covering up or downplaying the severity of public health crises.
According to China's latest official data, COVID-19 was the top cause of influenza-like emergencies last month across the country. The official report also says the overall trend is rising. And southern China's situation is worse than the north. A medical expert told a Chinese newspaper that this round of COVID-19 actually started back in March. He predicts the trend will hit its peak later this month. Authorities in Beijing also confirmed that COVID-19 cases, including patients with severe symptoms, doubled over the past few weeks. It's a rare move for the capital city to admit a public health crisis. We called Chinese people living across the country to hear about their experiences. They said there are rising cases of sudden deaths in their social circles, including many young to middle-aged people. Some crematoriums and public cemeteries are also reportedly being expanded to cope with increasing needs. What's more, in recent months, a slew of middle-aged established elites in China have passed away in the wake of rising virus surge. Their deaths have sparked discussion online. Hong Kong's world-class pop singer Eason Chang was also confirmed to have COVID-19, driving fans' worries about his health.
We're moving now to the dramatic jailbreak from the New Orleans Justice Center in Louisiana. A fourth escaped inmate has been captured. A New Orleans Sheriff's Office maintenance worker has also been taken into custody in connection with the escape. The fourth escapee, Gary Price, was captured late last night. As of last night, 6 inmates remained on the run, including men facing murder and assault charges. 10 inmates escaped early Friday by carving a hole into a cell toilet and scaling a wall. Some even left taunting messages behind. The FBI and other agencies have launched a multi-state manhunt, offering up to $10,000 per fugitive for tips leading to arrests. District Attorney Jason Williams says the delay in alerting the public put lives at risk, and some of his staff have fled the city fearing retaliation. The suspect working for the sheriff's office was identified as 33-year-old Sterling Williams. According to the Louisiana Attorney General's office, Williams admitted to law enforcement that one of the inmates, quote, advised him to turn the water off in the cell before the escape. In an arrest affidavit, Williams said one of the inmates who escaped had threatened to shank him if he did not comply. There's good news for the projected 39.4 million Americans expected to hit the road this Memorial Day. Filling up for the trip is going to be cheap. According to Gas Buddy, the average price of a gallon of gas is expected to be $3.08. Now that is the lowest price this time of year since 2021 and way lower than 3 years ago when it was $4.60. If you consider inflation, it's the cheapest gas has been since 2003 if you exclude the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, to a large degree, you can thank President Trump for that. President Trump has put pressure on OPEC to increase oil production. That's the cartel of oil-producing countries who, to a large degree, control the world's supply of oil and therefore its price. Home Depot says it will not raise prices from President Trump's tariffs. The home improvement giant is taking a different approach than that of Walmart and other retailers that plan to pass trade war-related costs onto consumers. Home Depot's finance chief told CNBC the company's scale and partnerships with suppliers makes it able to generally hold current pricing levels. More than half of the retailer's products come from the U.S. Home Depot reported sluggish earnings yesterday, weighed down by a weak housing market and people taking on fewer large-scale renovation projects. Coming up, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is facing questions about the Trump administration's handling of the Ukraine war, why some Democrats say that Russia is playing with President Trump. That and more after this break.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, 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 and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did.
Please call or go online to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor, and for a limited time only, your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Qatar's Prime Minister today addressing Gaza ceasefire negotiations in Doha. He says they have not led anywhere because of fundamental differences between parties.
One party is looking for a partial deal that might or have the possibility to lead to a comprehensive deal, and the other party is looking just for one-off deal and to end the war and to get all the hostages out. And we couldn't bridge this fundamental gap with whatever proposals we have provided.
Sheikh Mohammed Al Thani was speaking at an economic forum held in Doha. The Prime Minister says the delicacy of that situation in Gaza right now is critical. Al Thani also stated that Israel's intensified military campaign in Gaza has weakened efforts to reach a peace agreement. Meanwhile, the Times of Israel reported that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is said to be considering pulling Israel's delegation out of the negotiations. The leaders of Britain, Canada, and France threatened concrete actions against Israel yesterday if it does not stop a renewed military offensive in Gaza. They are also calling on Israel to lift aid restrictions. Now, the Israeli military announced the start of a new operation on Friday, and yesterday, Netanyahu said Israel would take control of the whole of Gaza and distribute aid at specific aid points. Israel's foreign minister declared today that Israel will not be dictated to by outside countries regarding its national security. He added that Israel is a proud, independent nation fighting for its existence. And Qatar dismissed concerns today about its offer to give President Trump a Boeing plane, saying it is not trying to buy influence. The comments come a day after a bill was introduced in the Senate to prevent a foreign aircraft operating as Air Force One. Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed Al Thani called the offer a normal thing that happens between allies. He said he did not know why people consider the gift as bribery. Al Thani said he hopes Americans see Qatar as a friend. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer introduced the Presidential Airlift Security Act after news of Trump planning to accept the $400 million airplane from Qatar. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is facing questions about the Trump administration's handling of the Ukraine war. Some Democrat lawmakers say Russia is playing with President Trump to gain time. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the update.
There is no military solution to this crisis.
Right.
It will have to end in a negotiated settlement. Russia wants what they do not currently have and are not entitled to, and Ukraine wants what they cannot regain militarily.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Tuesday, testifying before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Rubio laid out what he describes as the main challenge in the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
Russia wants what they do not currently have and are not entitled to, and Ukraine wants what they cannot regain militarily.
Some Democrat senators asked Rubio about the way the Trump administration has been handling the conflict. Many accuse Russian President Vladimir Putin of not actually trying to seek peace.
What Vladimir Putin is doing now is playing for time, and he's playing this president like a fiddle.
I disagree with this playing with a fiddle analogy, because the truth of the matter is when Vladimir Putin woke up this morning, he had the same set of sanctions on him that he's always had since the beginning of this conflict, and Ukraine was still getting armaments and shipments from us and from our allies, and the European Union is about to impose additional sanctions. This notion that, what has Putin gained throughout this? He hasn't gotten a single concession. He hasn't gotten a single sanction lifted.
And the more time he gets without additional pressure on Russia, the more incentive he's got to continue.
Also on Tuesday, Russia says that Ukraine has to decide if it will cooperate in discussing a memorandum for a possible peace treaty. President Trump spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin for 2 hours on the phone on Monday. Putin then agreed to set up such a treaty with Ukraine. The Kremlin now says that the ball is in Kiev's court. The memorandum would include the principles of a settlement and the timing and definitions of a possible ceasefire.
The Russian side once again demonstrated its desire to achieve a final and fair settlement to the crisis. To this effect, Moscow will propose that Kiev begins work on a memorandum regarding a future peace accord.
And the European Union agrees to impose new sanctions on Russia. The actions target almost 200 ships from Russia's shadow fleet. The vessels allegedly transport oil to skirt Western restrictions put in place earlier. The EU is also imposing asset freezes and travel bans on several officials and Russian companies. The Kremlin commented on Tuesday, criticizing the fact that Ukraine and the EU discussed the sanctions right after the first direct talks between Russia and Ukraine in Turkey last week. The meeting achieved no major breakthroughs. The European Union then said the pressure on Putin has to be increased. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
Taiwan President Lai Ching-te said Taiwan is willing to communicate with the Chinese Communist regime. He spoke on the first anniversary of his presidency.
I would like to reiterate that as long as there is mutual respect and dignity, Taiwan is very willing to engage in exchanges and cooperation with China. We aim to replace blockade with dialogue and to replace confrontation with conversation, moving towards a direction of peaceful coexistence and mutual prosperity.
Lai also outlined other topics, including national security. He pledged to continue strengthening Taiwan's defense through both international military procurement and domestic innovation. Now on trade policy, Lai highlighted Taiwan's strategy of deepening economic ties with democratic partners beyond the United States. He also spoke of the expanding presence of American companies AMD, NVIDIA, and others in Taiwan. He said they can strengthen the island's economy. Up next, can one woman's journey revive the promise of the American dream? From humble roots to education leader, we take a look at how Erica Donald is helping families across America follow that dream. We'll be right back.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee. We source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Abused youth often feel safer on the street. Now, more than ever, that's the most dangerous place of all. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming, and no young person is ever turned away. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month to help a young person. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Your gift will show them they're loved. Homeless young people are afraid and alone with nowhere else to turn.
You want to know that there's somewhere you can go that's safe. So the Covenant House did that for us.
Please call now with your gift of $19 a month. We'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. Please don't wait. Your gift is the lifeline a young person needs now. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org. Thank you for saving precious lives.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. So if you want to talk to your kids, you got to get it trending. I was just trying to get your attention.
Could I just ask?
Visit talkaboutVaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Is the American dream still within our reach? Well, it became a reality for Erica Donald, an entrepreneur, the founder of an education company, and the wife of Florida Congressman Byron Donald. Her journey had a humble beginning, but now she works to give hope and opportunities to her children and to families all across the country. Here's the latest episode of NTD's Women in Leadership.
Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and the types of values that you were raised with.
Well, I actually grew up in Tampa. I'm a fifth-generation Floridian, and my parents got divorced when I was 10, which is a really difficult time, especially for a young girl. And after that, it was pretty rough. I mean, before my parents got divorced, they owned a company. We had a great life as a family. And when financial times got really hard in the late 80s, that's when my family kind of fell apart. And that really did shape the rest of my life. I had to grow up very fast. My mom worked multiple jobs, so I was with a single mom. I had to start working when I was 14 and help her with the bills. I worked at McDonald's, for real, for 2 years, and then worked at the mall. I've had a job ever since, and I had to help my mom to make ends meet. And I didn't want to live like that. That's one of the reasons why I was so focused on my own education, to go to college and to have a career where I could take care of myself, my family, in case anything were to ever happen.
Obviously, you went through a lot of hardship when you were younger, your whole family, but it sounds like your mom in particular was someone that perhaps really inspired you and really had a lot of strength to overcome that financial difficulty.
And yeah, my mom worked really hard. She, to this day, we call each other get it done girls. You want something to get done, you ask my mom, you ask me. And my mom's parents, my grandparents, really stepped up and helped a lot. They were actually the ones who helped to instill faith in me. My parents didn't really go to church, but my grandparents would come and pick my brother and I up every Sunday, every Wednesday, make sure that we went to church, we went to Sunday school, we went to youth group, we went to summer camps that had Christian theme, and that helped us to have a grounding and a foundation in the Christian faith, even though at home we weren't really living that way. As I became a young adult and went into college, I started seeking out faith of my own and really owning my own relationship with God. And that definitely transformed my life going forward.
Erica, tell us a bit more about that.
Well, in college, I started to get wayward, right? I didn't have my grandparents there to help me and to guide me and to take me to church. And I could definitely feel that void for the first few years of school. Byron and I actually started dating before I came back to the Lord. And my senior year, I started going to church regularly and really just felt like, wow, this is what my life was missing. I invited him, and he started coming to church with me as well. And then we started a whole new life together, really. We graduated Florida State University together in 2002, and we got married a year later. When we got out of college, we were working multiple jobs. We were pregnant. We had a baby pretty soon after we graduated from college, and found careers, just worked really hard to get out of college debt, built the American dream. I mean, we worked hard from the bottom.
How do you think that those experiences when you and your husband, Congressman Byron Donalds, were younger really informed your work ethic?
I wanted to be able to send my children to private school if that was what was best for them, or buy a house in a great school district. So I knew education was my ticket out of poverty and out of being a statistic, and my husband felt the same way. His parents sacrificed, his mom especially, in order for him to go to private school and make something for himself.
I'm sure you've got so many examples, but if you can think of something in particular, maybe something that someone said to you that, really touched your heart and really just kind of made you feel like what you do is really worthwhile.
Well, it starts with my own son, the son that allowed me to discover school choice, where they wanted to put him on drugs. They wanted to put him in a separate classroom when he was in first grade. And I said no. I found a different school for him, and he thrived. And now he's graduating high school, and he has a full ride scholarship to the #1 school of his choice. He's never been on drugs. He's never been in a special classroom. So I was right as a parent. But not just for myself, I know there are so many other kids out there, and that's why we do what we do, to give parents the options that they need so that their children can thrive. And I hear from parents all the time. I love to hear from parents who say, I didn't think there was a solution for my child. Now that they're going to this school of choice, sometimes our schools or sometimes just other schools, they're thriving, they love to learn, and they have a chance of success and the American dream. That is everything.
When we come back, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth just posted a memo on X ordering the review of the U.S. military withdrawal from Afghanistan. He's going to join President Donald Trump soon in the Oval Office to make more announcements. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. A few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did.
Please call or go online to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor, and for a limited time only, your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.